Yes, it is very cold. Our heat is not running in the back room, which is where I powder coat at. And I have like a bunch of stuff to ship that I just got powder coated. So I have my Milwaukee heated coat, so it's not that bad, but and the oven heated up a bit in here, but it's still really cold. If I was up in the front of the building, it's not nearly as cold, but I have to get this stuff shipped out right after our meeting. So I was
have you talked to the management about this?
I have, and they really seemed uninterested. I know. I feel like I should get reimbursed for despair and heartache of being cold, but alas, I don't think I'm going to.
I'm surprised you can powder coat when it's that cold. I mean, paint.
So you can. I usually use a torch on the steel so it warms it up a little bit. But to be honest, since it's powder and not wet paint, it's usually not a big deal.
Oh, I see. It's a different kind of paint. I'm just used to, when we do renovations, which it seems like we're always renovating something, that you have to have the heat on if you're gonna
oh yeah,
it doesn't dry and it drips. Anyway, we are at 1 minute after 12, so let's go ahead and start the meeting and welcome everybody. We have a couple of pieces of business, but where did I see Shawn? Shawn, are you still here? There you are. Hi, Shawn. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Is Tim here someplace?
I haven't seen Tim. I just sent him a message to see if he's going to be able to join us. I think he was going to be able to.
Okay, yeah, because usually we would have him introduce you, although in your case, most of us know you. So in order not to waste your time, maybe we'll go ahead and have you do your presentation first. And you can just introduce yourself in case anything changed since the last time we saw you, which I suspect a few things have changed.
Yes.
So I'm handing the floor to you now.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, thank you all for having me today. I was really looking forward to hanging out with you over lunch. I miss our times together. You will be happy to know that Tim made up for the lunch that I'm missing. He gave me a gift card to a restaurant. And before you think, oh, that Tim Thompson, what a guy, just know that the gift card has been in his car for like 2 years. And he went into the glove box and rummaged around and found it and gave it to me. But I am still grateful for it and for the chance to be able to join you all today. I want to just share maybe some of the little update on us, and then some leadership lessons that I'm learning that I hope might be beneficial to you as well. Like Rowena said, a lot has happened since joined you all last on March 8th, 2020. Sherwood Oaks Christian Church affirmed me as the next lead minister of the church, following the retirement of Tom Ellsworth, who faithfully served this congregation, this community for about 40 years. And then a week after that is when the whole world kind of shut down, and so I got to transition into the lead minister role at Sherwood Oaks. And really a transition that was already going to be difficult, no matter who it was, no matter when it was, following on just the heels of someone like Tom. But I got to transition into it in the midst of this global pandemic, and get to work and lead with guys like Tim Thompson, who I'm constantly trying to reiterate the importance and the value of being on time, punctual. Tim's joining us. Oh man, sorry, Tim.
I got so wrapped up in trying to do the work of ministry, Shawn, that I forgot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, it's been a fun couple of years transitioning in the midst of this. And some of you may know Alan Burris, who served as a lead minister at Mitchell Church of Christ for about 20 years. Alan told me very early on in my tenure, he said, "Shawn, you won't believe me right now, but a time will come when you'll look back and you'll be grateful that you transitioned in the midst of this. And I said, Alan, you're right. I don't believe you. I don't think that time will ever come. But, I look back on it now, and I think Alan, as he usually is, he was right. A couple of superficial reasons why. In transitions like these, people tend to look at a couple of different metrics to determine if it was a successful, transition or not. And because of how COVID disrupted everything, some of those traditional metrics kind of went out the window. And so I didn't have to live up to some of those. And I wasn't like constantly being measured on how many people were here on a Sunday. And also, I guess, kind of going along with that, no one was able to look back and say, Shawn, when Tom led us through a global pandemic, he did it like this. Because, we're all in the same, this is new, uncharted territory. And I think everyone kind of understood that. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity that had to be able to lead through this time. I'm not grateful for this time, but I'm grateful for the opportunity and the things that I've learned about myself, the things that I've learned about leadership. And I want to share 2 of those things with you today, just in hopes that maybe they will be as beneficial for you as they have been and continue to be for me. And the first lesson is strive to be a non-anxious presence. Let's just kind of sit on that one just for a little bit. Strive to be a non-anxious presence. I heard someone say about this time last year that sustained stress and extended ambiguity, which just kind of pause right there, because those are some meaty phrases: sustained stress and extended ambiguity. And I don't know that there are 2 phrases that better describe kind of where we are right now and what a lot of people are feeling than those 2 things: sustained stress and extended ambiguity. 2020 was certainly hard, but I'll tell you, nearly every leader that I've talked to, whether it be in the church, outside the church, in business, family, whatever, almost everyone says that 2021 has been more difficult than 2020, or was more difficult than 2020. And I think the reason is because in 2020, we were like, man, we're all in this together. Let's go. We're going to get through this. And then in 2021, we're like, we're done with this. Like, let's just be done. And the growing conflict and on the different sides being taken on so many different issues. And so I think that we're all just kind of experiencing that stress and that ambiguity. And so he goes on and he says that those 2 things, sustained stress and extended ambiguity, are a cocktail for depression and anxiety. And so what do you get when you mix sustained stress and extended ambiguity together? It's not a margarita, although many may have enjoyed those over the last couple of years to take the edge off of it. But when you mix those together, you get depression, you get anxiety. And I would even add, you get a healthy dose of anger and angst too, based on some of my own experiences. And I think everyone's feeling it. Studies show that these things are on the rise. But I imagine that we could probably all point to anecdotal evidence that the people we know and that we love and that we work with, everyone's just feeling a little bit more anxious, maybe a little bit more depressed, angry, fearful than what we ever have before. And in a world that is, I guess, shouting so loudly, I'm trying to learn just how to be that non-anxious presence, to acknowledge the reality and the pain that some people feel, the fear that they feel. Acknowledge that, but not add to it. Try to be just a calming voice in a loud world that just keeps shouting at each other. Kind of had this mental image that I want to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermostat can react to the feel of the room and change it. A thermometer can only react to it and kind of respond. And so I don't want to just, respond. I want to react in a way that is helpful and that helps others feel less anxious and frustrated in a world where we're all kind of living with more stress and ambiguity than we ever have before. So that's the first lesson, is just learning how to let some things go and to strive to be a non-anxious presence in an overly anxious world. And kind of ties in with the second lesson. And that's to let go of the things that I cannot control. Let go of the things that I cannot control. And if I'm honest, this one's been hard for me. 19 years of marriage. My wife and I just celebrated our 19th anniversary earlier this month. And almost 10 years of being a daddy to two incredible little girls. It's made me come face to face with my felt need for control. It's a problem that I have, and certainly the last 2 years have really shined a spotlight on it for me. And, you know, as a follower of Jesus, someone of faith, I've been trying to lean into his invitation to come and find rest in him. One of my favorite things that Jesus ever said is in Matthew chapter 11. And he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And he uses two words in here that were kind of agricultural words, yoke and burden. The yoke is a harness that would fasten over to the necks of animals that were pulling something. And that thing that they were pulling was the burden. So whether it was like a cart or a plow. And Jesus is inviting us just to rest, to take on his yoke that is light and his burden that is easy. And if I'm honest, when I was stepping into this role, I found myself bearing a yoke that was rather heavy. I found myself wanting to live up to like Tom and step into his shoes. I wanted to be like Tom. I felt like the people expected me to be Tom. My expectations were to be Tom, or that others wanted me to be, whether they actually did or not. That was kind of the yoke that I put on myself. And I don't know if you've ever tried doing that, but it is a heavy burden to carry, trying to be someone else. The yoke that I wanted to put on myself was to have all of the answers. In a time where, you know, all of us were left with more questions than answers, I felt like I had to be the one that had all the answers. You know, I'm sitting in the corner office now. I'm the leader now. I got to have all the answers. And I needed to cast clear vision and direction. And like, honestly, I didn't even know what the next week was going to hold, let alone the next month or a year. But I felt this expectation, this yoke was on me to cast clear vision and direction about where we were going. And honestly, it just kind of felt unbearable. And I finally just had to say, God, I can't do this. Like, I surrender my need to control things over to you. And I think for people who have been open to learning this lesson, that's maybe been one of the best parts of this season. One of the things that it has taught us, that we're not in control as much as what we thought that we were. We're never as in control as what we think that we are. And I think that this last couple of years just helped us realize we're not as in control as we like to think that we are. And there are a lot of people who we've seen, and maybe even ourselves, we've fought against that. And then there are others who just kind of learn how to adapt to that. And so I'm learning the joy of surrendering my need for control to the one who is actually in control. And I promise I'm not getting preachy here. This has been my experience that I wanted to share with you. And so I'm learning to take Jesus' yoke, not mine. Jesus' yoke says, trust me, walk with me, let me lead you. Jesus' yoke is teaching me to learn to just be okay with doing my best in the moment. A friend said to me about a year and a half ago that there is no perfect solutions to an imperfect situation. I thought that's really wise, you know? There's no perfect solutions to an imperfect situation. And so if people want us to have all of the answers when no one had answers, honestly, I just had to realize, like, man, that's a them problem. That's not a me problem. That's like their own need for control. And I can't live up. That is too heavy of a weight to carry those expectations. So I'm not going to judge yesterday's decisions based on today's information. That's a recipe for just disaster. And I'm going to do and give my best in the moment. And I find that when I do that and I'm comfortable with that, man, I sleep really well at night. And so that's kind of what I'm learning to do, to learn that I have limits. All of us have limits. Some are more than others. and just to enjoy living within those limits. And when we try to push through those limits and live as if we don't, we're probably going to be exhausted and miserable in the end. And actually, we're probably going to make those around us feel pretty exhausted and miserable too. So those are the two lessons that I am learning as I've transitioned into this new role in the midst of the pandemic. I'm striving to be that non-anxious presence, learning to let go of the things that I cannot control. And just I'll close with this. It's amazing the kind of symbiotic relationship that those two things have with one another. That the less I try to control things that I cannot control, it's amazing, the less anxiety that I feel. And the less anxious I feel, the less I feel the need to be in control of things or people. And so however you lead, whoever you lead, even if it's just leading yourself, I hope that you can take these two lessons and maybe be as beneficial for you as they have been for me. So thanks for letting me share today.
Thank you, Shawn. I have a question for you, and I'm sure some other people do too. My question has to do, you said that sustained stress and extended ambiguity were a cocktail for depression and something else.
And anxiety.
And anxiety. Extended ambiguity. What does that mean to you? Like, I have an idea of what it might mean to me in this particular situation, but I'd be interested in your thoughts of what that exactly refers to.
Yeah. So I think, again, in 2020, and this is, COVID is certainly just the example that all of us feel right now. And there's other examples of this throughout history and in our life, and there will be more. But, 2020, it was ambiguous what was going to happen. But I think that there was a little bit of a sense of we're going to pull together, we're going to flatten the curve, we're going to do the Hoosier hunker down. And it was ambiguous about what all of that meant and how long it was going to go. But like there was a willingness, I think, in a majority of people to walk through it. But as that ambiguity just continued to extend, and we were wondering what's the next variant going to be, what's going to happen, with well, I don't want to get into some of the other things. Like, it just became more and more ambiguous about what is the end look like in this. And I think as that stretched out further and further and further, it just led to almost like a fatigue of not knowing what was next or what was coming or when all of this was going to end. And I think that just kind of wears on people more and more.
Yeah. Who did somebody else have a question?
Me, but
Go ahead.
finished. If you're not finished, that's okay.
Go ahead. I had to switch the gallery.
Shawn, on a positive note, have you also noticed that maybe people have gotten closer through all this, and they're, we're all in this together, and they're thinking, God's in control. Just relax. Maybe get some peace from that, and maybe their faith has become stronger.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, we've seen, and a lot of churches have seen people dive deeper into those things that really do matter. And at times where the foundation that we thought was really firm kind of begins to crack and fall underneath our feet, we look for what that firm foundation is that we can stand on. And so, I do think that people of faith have really been able to lean into that even more. And it's become more real. It's not just a Sunday morning, maybe ritual. It's they have kind of taken deeper steps into their walk with Christ.
I have to say that I think a lot and have through this entire pandemic about other really, really stressful, uncertain periods. I guess this is the curse and the blessing of, doing history. But it really illuminated what, like, my grandparents lived through in World War II, for example, or my grandfather actually fought in World War I. Those kinds of things where things were even less certain than they are now,
Absolutely.
And there was a death toll, and it was affecting everybody, and people were being expected to do without. And same kind of thing, like buckle up and, deal with it. The depression, all those stories you heard, at least I heard, from various family members about these times suddenly come into like real relief. And I think, someday we'll all be telling pandemic stories to our grandkids or something. I don't know. I probably will never have grandkids, but so maybe somebody will be interested in the story. So anyway, I don't know if you have older people who talk to you about stuff like this too, who have gone through those kinds of periods, and this brings it all kind of back.
Yeah. You mentioned, World War II, Vietnam. Those were probably the nearest that people could come to kind of connect in the dots of just the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
Shawn, I have a question.
Yeah.
It was kind of a perfect storm when you made the transition, and other kind of organizations, they knew how many hamburgers they didn't sell, or they knew how many widgets they didn't make. But how did you handle, in your own mind, figuring out whether you were doing okay based on something that you'd never had to base it on before? You sort of touched on that.
Yeah. It came down to like, how do we just care for people through this time? It's not about how many people join us on a Sunday morning for in-person worship or virtual worship or whatever. It's about like, how can we care for these people that maybe are feeling pretty lost and disconnected? And so we had a team of people that would reach out and do regular checkup calls, especially on some of our more vulnerable population, to make sure that they were doing okay. And then I think we also wanted to do kind of a rallying point for our congregation to know, like, we're still in this, and our mission is not stopping, even if we're not worshiping for 18 weeks, I think is what it was, in person. Our mission as a church is going to continue. And so we started this thing early on in the pandemic called the Acts 245 Fund. Acts 245 says, all the believers sold their possessions and gave to anyone who had need. And we found that there were a lot of people that said, we can't gather and we can't go out and serve, but I got this stimulus check and I don't really need it. Can I pass it on to somebody who does? Or I've got these resources. Can we use these to help people? And so we just said that, if you want to give to the Acts 245 Fund, we're going to send it on to people in our community and around the world who are being directly affected by this pandemic. We raised over $240,000 within our church in the course of 6 months that we took in and we sent out to come alongside of people. And I think that became like the rallying cry for folks to see, like, no, we're still in it. And so while we maybe weren't worshiping with one another in the same room, we felt like there was this collective thing that we were all doing and that we were passionate about.
Good. Looks like we lost our sound.
Yeah, Shawn's stuck. Maybe he'll come back. Well, Tim, take him back over.
Yeah, I will. I'll just say this. Hearing Shawn articulate what he's shared this morning. Are you back with us, Shawn?
Yes.
As he has articulated that, one of the things I'm nodding my head as he's talking, because one, these are things that he shared with his team, and he challenged us, really in the midst of our own sort of anxiety and questions, to do exactly what he was learning himself. And he didn't really land on this, but that idea of being a non-anxious presence, he really was for me, because I was doing the same thing, sort of leading through and learning how to lead in a really awkward and scary spot. And so when I got a chance to hang out with Shawn and talk about my concerns, he was modeling all of the things that he was learning. And the idea that people are watching us and people are gauging their response by our response, that idea about being a thermostat and not a thermometer really rang true as well. And then I agree with him. We get in this cycle, this symbiotic cycle where our anxiety makes us tighten up or feel like we need to tighten up control over the things that we feel we have little control over. I mean, it's ironic, really. We have no, but we feel like we need to take more. And then the more control we have, the more sense of, the weight and the burden of trying to manage what we think we are responsible to manage just adds another level of anxiety, which in turn just circles around and makes us want to tighten our grip on all of that. I really liked what he shared. One, it's stuff that he has modeled and spoken of to me personally. But again, just as he's these very simple lessons about one, just strive to be an anxious presence. And two, just let go of what you can't control. Those are great lessons. So
Thanks,
I hope
Tim.
you guys enjoy them as much
Appreciate
as I.
it.
Hey, there you are. There you are.
Hey, yeah. Sorry about that. I got so passionate about talking about the Acts 245 fund. I hit my desk and my little cable that plugs in my internet and camera and everything unplugged, and so I lost you all. My apologies. Yeah.
Well, welcome back. Thanks for coming back. We didn't
Thank
know
you,
if we
Rowena.
lost you for the duration or not.
Yeah.
And thank you for speaking. This is obviously a subject that resonates with everybody on the screen and probably everybody in our community too. Anybody else have any questions? It looks like Tim Cessna.
Yeah, Shawn, you mentioned when you started out Alan Burris, and
Yeah.
I want to brag about his family. Daryl, this will be interesting to you about science. His dad Howard was at Riley School in the 6th grade when I was in 6th grade, but I had the other teacher by the name of Bush. But then I went to Burris School in Mitchell, named after the Burris family, of course. And so in the 7th and 8th grade, the grandfather, Lester Burris, was my science teacher. And so, you get a start of a lot of science in those years.
Yeah.
So we're talking about mixing historically science plus whatever else you want to call COVID or speculation about and the uncertainty about COVID, see, and but yet you've got Lester Burris, who was a science teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shawn, that's great.
Shawn and Ray, I'll
Hey, Ray.
do any research or background on the Spanish flu that hit us in 1917, 1918. My father had it in those years as a teenager, and he survived it, but he paid the price in his later years. But there was really a worse pandemic then than now. Did you go back and do any research and try to get some guidance from that?
Early on, Ray, there was some kind of a cliche term, some thought leaders who did that, and I remember hearing some of the findings that they had, like what can we learn from that situation that we can take in and apply to today's. Honestly, that seems like 10 years ago, and I can't remember some of the things that I took from that. But yeah, I remember a lot of people kind of looking back to see how can history inform us on how to respond today.
I don't know how far back the history goes, but my last time I had the flu was in 1963. So it's been that long since I've really been sick. And I just came through COVID and found out that your faith is very important all the way through. Life itself, it's important to have faith and trust the good Lord.
Can I interject too?
Yeah, go ahead.
On that also, and I have to say, most of the people that we associate with are Christians. And so that fear is not the same as non-Christians. but I did have an opportunity, I guess, a non-Christian who was just absolutely paralyzed from this and the fear. And the first thing that came to my mind is Satan has got to be really happy about this, because that's the one thing Satan loves, is to cast fear and anxiety and all the things that were happening. And by being, living with Christ, you don't have to have that.
right.
So that was just something that I really, really, really felt sadness for this person, because they were basically paralyzed from it. I mean, I've never seen anyone quite so fearful.
Mhm.
So Shawn, any parting comments? Anybody else have any questions? If not, thank you so much. We can all applaud like this.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
And,
all. Thank you for having me. It's really good to see all of your faces again.
Come
Good
back
to see you.
anytime. We're always
Thank
good
you.
for lunch, except today,
Yes.
a few other days, but
Like I said, Tim more than made up for it in that gift card that he gave me out of his glove box. That we're hoping has not expired.
Thank
That
you,
is-
Tim.
that is
Also,
our
yeah.
hope. Thank you.
I've been making dessert while we've been eating, so I wish I could share it with you.
Well,
I misunderstood.
Tim,
I misunderstood. Doc.
Yes, I haven't moved, so come on by.
I bet Donna has a lot of takers for that dessert. You might want to hurry, but don't hurry too fast, Rotarians, because we still have a meeting. John, of course, you're welcome to stay or go as you want. Kim Thompson, don't you move. We have you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.